I've come back from the future to warn you that if you don't subscribe to Geekdom 101, your future is grim.
Dragon Ball Super Champa Arc, manga versus anime differences. Herms joins me as we talk about some of the differences between the Dragon Ball manga and anime. And I want everybody watching this to leave a comment and let me know, now that it's all said and done, what did you like more? We're talking about the entire arc, by the way. The manga or the anime? Herms, how are you?
All right.
Now, Herms, again, we know this about you. You always prefer the manga. It's the original vision. However, in this case, it's not the original vision because Toriyama is not drawing panel for panel. He is not creating this by himself. It is Toyotaro envisioning what Toriyama tells him. Same thing with Toei. So in this instance, would you put, in your opinion, less stock on the manga?
Well, yeah, certainly it's less so than with the original series, where it was Toriyama just drawing everything and then that getting adapted by Toei. Whereas this, like, we still don't know entirely how it works, but it seems that Toriyama has notes on the basic plot, which then gets adapted by Toyotaro and then Toei, how they both see fit.
Now,
so it's like both versions are adaptations of an original idea from Toriyama.
Yeah, I've used the word manuscript to describe it. That's just because I've used that for, like, George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones. You know, he's got manuscripts for all his books that are being given to the producers of the show to do the episodes, because now they're going through the same problem that Super's going through, where the series is ahead of the books. Same thing. Kind of a scary thing where you're doing adaptations of incomplete material, but that's where we're at right now, Herms. So what are some of the major differences from the manga and the anime? You have a list. Let's go through them.
Yeah, so first off, Champa and Vados appear in the manga earlier than they do in the TV version of Super, because in the TV version, they don't actually appear until this arc. Whereas with Super, and with the manga version, it has them there from the beginning, off and on, during the Battle of Gods adaptation.
In the anime, their first appearance was at the very beginning of the Resurrection F arc, in that last sequence where they show Champa and Vados blowing up a planet.
Yeah, so they have that kind of teaser, whereas there's more of those teasers in the manga version.
Yeah, there's actually a whole subplot where Champa and Vados go to Namek, or no, the Kaioshin believe they're going to Namek. They wind up going to Namek, and that results in the Kibito Kai fusion being defused. We saw the defusion in the anime, but the anime never tells us what actually happened. The manga explains it a little bit better, in my opinion.
Yeah, we still, in the anime version, it's just like, well, we felt weird, so we defused ourselves for some reason.
We felt weird 4 years after we fused. All right, whatever.
It's just like, it's the 4-year itch.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been inside of another man, so I don't know, or vice versa, so I don't know how that feels like. But I can't imagine the sharing of memories is too pleasant. But continue.
All right, and so the next kind of big thing is that in the manga version, there's a brief scene where they rename Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan into Super Saiyan Blue. And this is what Goku and Vegeta do this when they're training with Whis at the very beginning before Champa and Vados show up. And in the anime version, there's no equivalent to this scene, and so instead they don't use the name Super Saiyan Blue until midway through the tournament.
We didn't even hear the term Super Saiyan Blue or Super Saiyan Blue, Super Saiyajin Blue, until the Kaba fight. It wasn't even brought up even remotely. In fact, we still have not heard Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan at all in any of the anime, movie, or TV.
Yeah, so far, that phrase, it's used on merchandise a lot. It's used
and video games.
Toriyama labeled his character designs with that, but the manga is the only version of the story where the characters have said that in universe.
Yes.
And mostly during this scene where they decide that it's a terrible name and that they should rename it to something simpler. So in the anime version, the characters only ever say Blue, and so we could assume that in that continuity, that's just been the name from day one.
Yeah. I know you and Mike over on KANZENSHUU, you guys did a podcast all about it. So I'll link that down below. The KANZENSHUU podcast that covers the Blue SSGSS changes. Continue.
Yeah. And then another thing is that that manga has an entire scene, this flashback to to Champa and Beerus fighting each other on their birthday because they just get into another fight over food and they end up destroying several planets in the course of this fight. And so this serves as an explanation for why they these days only compete in terms of like food tasting contests rather than physical fights. And so in the anime, they don't have that. They just kind of instead there's that brief scene where they kind of start to fight, like they're kind of not they're like kind of staring at each other
on top of the table.
Yeah, and then Whis and Vado step in and stop them because they say like, "Well, this will destroy both our universes if you two were to fight." So it's not the same scene, but it's the same idea that these two they shouldn't directly fight each other because it would just destroy too much.
Yeah. Now, which one do you like more? Actually, we should go through as we go through these and give our opinions. Firstly, the change of SS GSS to SS Blue. Which one do you like more, the manga or the anime?
I mean, I kind of like it being directly addressed in the manga, but I guess, like I said, we could assume in the anime that there was no in-universe change, like it was just what they called it always. So it's a little hard to choose in that case.
Yeah, I respect that. I think the manga is better. Now, what about the Champa versus Beerus fight? I actually would go with the manga on this one. I love that they're in space destroying asteroids and shit. That was awesome.
Yeah, and so they start in space and then they go down onto a planet and you can see some of the natives of the planet a bit, and then the entire thing gets blown up, and it has a nice sense of scale to it.
Yeah, I agree. Continue.
All right, so next for the preliminaries of the tournament, like the written test portion. Well, okay, first off, in general, just the arena for the tournament looks very different between the two versions, which kind of makes it seems like Toriyama, he only did character designs for the characters, and so he probably didn't give them any design for the tournament arena, and that's probably why they don't quite match up between versions.
I like Toyotaro's touches here. I like that he also did a great job because it's an Egyptian theme because, of course, Beerus and Champa are based on Egyptian cats. Now, there is one other thing I wanted to bring up, Herms, and that is the Room of Spirit and Time training. We didn't even talk about that. Yeah, the Room of Spirit and Time training in the manga has them in their blue-haired forms doing the classic pose from their first fight back in the Vegeta saga or the Saiyan arc, whatever you want to call it. In the anime, they use the MMA gloves. Now, I love the MMA gloves, and so does Kendamu, but I like the manga more because that classic pose, brother, is just a quick throwback. You can tell that Toyotaro is a huge fan of Dragon Ball and that he grew up with it, the fact that he remembers these things.
Yeah, he does a lot of those kind of little Easter egg type things.
Agreed. Yes. What's the next one?
So speaking of the tournament arena design, though, one of speaking of his and also his Toyotaro's Easter eggs is so they have the kind of monolith thing in the arena where some Japanese fan on Twitter actually pointed out that if you look closely, it's like there's this invented script saying like the Beerus team versus Champa team showdown. And it's like it's this mix of Japanese katakana with English alphabet letters, and it's just this ridiculously detailed throwaway background thing that's not in the anime at all, and it's just kind of shows you Toyotaro can be very geeky about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you just wonder why he spent so much time on it.
Yeah, and then so another thing is that. And this is kind of convoluted, but so when the manga first came out, when it came out in V-Jump, and Kabe first appears, he refers to his planet as Planet Salad, which just one for one taken directly from the English word for salad.
Yeah, because of vegetable puns, of course.
Yeah, and then when the anime came out, they renamed it to Planet Sadal, and then when the manga was released in the collected edition, they changed it to also be called Sidal in keeping with the anime, and then in all subsequent references to the planet, they've stuck with Sidal. So, for instance, when the the chapter with Vegeta fighting Kabe ran in Jump. Even in that case, it was Sadal, even though previously in Jump it would have been referred to as Salad.
Yeah, these are these tidbits that we're not going to know about in 10, 15 years, and unless this recording survives, which I think it will. So
yeah, so for whatever reason, they just felt that Salad was too straightforward a name, and so they changed that. It's like at this point, it's not even an anime manga difference. It's like a first edition manga thing.
Yeah, which is not the first time it's happened. We can go back to Gohan being 3 years old in the original run of Shonen Jump, whereas in every subsequent re-release and the anime, it was changed to 4.
Yeah. And then so for the in the manga version, Boo he fails the written test, and he even writes his name wrong. Whereas, in the anime, he just falls asleep, right?
Yeah, he just fell asleep, but he also didn't pass the test either, because when they graded it, he didn't pass.
Okay. So, yeah, in the anime, it's kind of a double whammy.
Yeah.
So, the Botamo fight, it's plot-wise, it's the same, but in the manga, there's a lot more movement compared to the anime, ironically enough.
Yeah, I thought the fight was better in the manga significantly, in my opinion, because, Botamo was fast, and I always like when they have a big fat guy be really fast. I always like that stuff.
Yeah, in the anime, he kind of just stands there and with his arms folded, which kind of makes sense since he can nullify attacks, but it doesn't look... It's not quite as dynamic as him actually moving.
Didn't the anime also add the line about how he can transfer attacks to a different...
that's right.
Yeah, that's another change.
Yeah, in the anime, they say, the reason why nothing affects him is because he transfers the damage to another dimension. Jocko says that, and then, Bulma, whoever's standing next to him is like, really? And then he says, well, probably. So it's not even a full, a certain explanation. It's just Jocko's guess. Whereas in the manga, it's made clear that the attacks don't really affect him, but they don't really give a specific reason why. Which is kind of a recurring theme, and that there's a lot more detail in the anime.
Yeah, but again, like you said, the manga, he only had a few pages to work with, so...
Yeah, so I think... So that's one of the things, fans have said, all these this extra exposition given in the anime, is that just stuff they added in... Is that stuff Toei added in to fill up time, or is that from Toriyama? Because I'd think, you might, if it's only in the anime, the traditional assumption would be it's not from Toriyama, but it's easy to assume that, in fact, Toriyama is giving them this information, but Toyotaro he doesn't have the room to include it in his version, whereas Toei has a little more leeway. But again, we're probably never going to know for sure. Unless they ever, choose to just publish Toriyama's notes on this story arc.
Yeah, which we're all hoping for, right?
Yeah.
So the Frost thing, big changes here, because in the anime, Frost, I don't even know. You can kind of get into it better than I can in a sense. We can both talk about it, but the anime Frost kind of, they had this whole subplot where, he pretended to be good, and then he turns out he was just as sinister as Frieza, but maybe even more so because he, rather than just be this empirical maniac, he actually manipulated people. But in the manga, I don't remember that at all being there. It's almost as if he wasn't that bad.
Okay, yeah, so in the anime, he's essentially Emperor Palpatine in the anime, where it's he has a public image of stopping wars, and then it turns out he's secretly starting those wars in the first place.
Or the Illuminati.
And then making a profit on, helping to rebuild after the wars are over. And then none of that's mentioned in the manga version, whereas instead, so in the manga, when it turns out that he's cheating, they just say that, he just says that there's no prize money, so I wanted to end the matches quickly. And that's basically it. So, I mean, they don't explicitly say that they don't say that he wasn't some manipulative guy, but it's just never brought up one way or the other.
They added layers to the character in the anime. Now, which one do you prefer on that one?
I mean,
this is the polarizing one.
I mean, the thing is, I would have preferred it if he had just stayed as a good version of Frieza. Because I thought that was it was very funny for him to be not only a good version of Frieza, but a version of Frieza who's a much better person than the actual good guys. like all that stuff where he's like ridiculously good. He's giving to charities. He's won like the Nobel Prize.
And
The
not
idea
just that, but he also worked with the Saiyans, and there was a cool little thing about how it's like the same thing, but he's like a good leader, you know?
Yeah, and it's like he's I mean they set him up in the anime as being someone who's more actively doing good than Goku or Vegeta, where they're more, what if they happen to encounter bad guys, they defeat them, but overall they're not like they're not setting up charities. They're not actively looking for good things they can do. Their main concern day to day is just training.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I wish they had stuck with that. So I wasn't quite as happy in the anime when it turned out he was evil. But if you're gonna have the revelation that he is a bad guy, I kind of liked the whole Palpatine angle the anime gave versus the manga, where it's like almost, if you're gonna have a twist, you should have a huge twist. Whereas the manga twist is it's kind of ambiguous just how evil he is, like exactly what the deal is. Like, is he just lazy and he only says like, oh, there's no money, so I wanted to end it quickly. So it's like, I guess he's just impatient in the manga version, which isn't quite as effective a plot point.
Well, we also had that whole extra scene where he tried to make off with the cube.
Oh yeah.
And Hit stopped him. Yeah. So there's like a whole and then we saw a preview. I think that was just done to give everybody a preview of just how dangerous Hit is.
Yeah, just to show that he has this kind of strange ability that's not like what the other characters can do. And also, that's when we learn that Hit wants the cube in the anime, whereas in the manga it's not mentioned until he starts to fight against Goku and Vegeta.
Yeah, agreed. Now, go ahead.
Okay, so speaking of in stuff with Frost, his needle is very different between the versions, whereas in the anime it is literally just like a little needle stuck in his arm, whereas in the manga it's like, it does look like it's more part of his arm. Like, it looks like it shoots out, kind of like Yakon. Yakon had that thing the spear kind of thing that came out of his arm.
Yeah. It's and we don't even know if like that's part of his body. They ever explain if that's part of his? Go ahead.
Well, he claims in both versions, he claims that the needle isn't a weapon. He says it is part of his body, but then the referee looks at it and is like, "No, this has clearly been grafted on."
Yeah.
But so it presumably, presumably not part of his body, but in the manga at least, it's more plausible. It looks more plausibly like it could be part of his body. Whereas the anime, it literally looks like he kind of just taped it on or whatever.
Yeah, he drilled a hole into himself and put it in there. Very weird. Then we have, of course, Goku. Well, no, Piccolo. I thought the manga version of this fight I thought was better, only because we saw Piccolo with the cape and the weighted clothing. But again, I've had other people tell me I'm wrong, and they think the anime version is better. I just thought the idea of Piccolo charging up the move for the entire duration of the fight was a little bit boring. What do you think about this change?
Yeah, I think I like the manga version better here. But, yeah. I mean, I do like the Makanko Sappo, but they devote maybe a little too much of the episode to it.
I agree, yeah. And then, of course, Frost thinks him as well.
Yeah.
Now, Piccolo forfeiting the fight. I don't remember off the top of my head. That was in the manga too?
Yeah, it's in both versions.
It was, okay. Just double checking.
It's the kind of thing where, Vegeta's the one who kind of just announces that Piccolo's forfeiting.
Yeah.
And then, he says like, because since Piccolo only lost because Frost broke the rules, they established that he should be reinstated. But then Vegeta's like, oh no, he's forfeiting. And then at that point, they show Piccolo kind of like nodding his assent. So yeah, it's kind of weird. Like
that's kind of uncharacteristic of Piccolo too. But whatever, this whole thing is a mess. So yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it might have been fun to have a scene of him losing to Magetta, but I guess in the end, it doesn't make too much of a difference in the plot long term.
Vegeta versus Magetta. I actually felt the anime was better here. In my opinion, I thought the anime was better, but a lot of that may have to do with the fact that Ryo Horikawa nailed it and the animation looked amazing. But again, so that's not really fair. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, that was probably one of the better tournament fights. overall. But yeah, so the manga version, well, okay, the anime version, they have the whole thing where they add in the extra barrier around the arena, and then it turns out that that's like there to trap in heat and restrict Vegeta's movements. And so there's this whole strategic element that's not quite there in the manga version. They just leave all that out. And then of course the whole thing with them in the anime where they're adding in extra rules that kind of ties into the end of the tournament, where again they start arguing about whether they should allow Goku to get rid of all the rules and just have a full-fledged death match. And so this sets the precedent for just kind of messing around with the rules.
Yeah, was totally omitted from the manga.
Yeah, and then so in the anime it's kind of a strategic thing, whereas in the manga it's kind of just there's some strategy. But it's a bit different where Vegeta, he starts fighting Magetta. He doesn't seem to be able to phase him, so he's like, okay, I'd better not send him out of the ring the same way Goku did to Botamo. But then it turns out that he's far too heavy for Vegeta to lift because he weighs 1,000 tons, which which annoyed a lot of power scale type people. But whatever.
Well, this whole damn series has annoyed a lot of power scale type people. If you're a power scaling guy, this series has to be headaches for you. And you know what? I kind of feel sympathy for it, to be honest.
I don't know, but I mean the whole thing about how much weight people can lift has never been very consistent. Where, like, if you look at just in early Dragon Ball, they're moving around these huge boulders, and then in the Buu arc, Goku, oh god, what is it like? He has trouble lifting 4 tons in his regular form.
Yeah. With the Z sword, you mean?
Or no. When he's training at the very start of the Buu arc for
that's right.
And they put those kind of round things on his limbs.
Yeah, the weights, the weights on his the actual body weights. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I can't remember. There's some number they throw out there, and people have pointed out that the rocks in early Dragon Ball that they push would weigh more than whatever the weights in the Buu arc are. But anyway, that's a different subject.
Yeah, the scaling after the Cell arc is a mess. We can all kind of agree to that.
Well, I'd put it earlier than that, but whatever. Anyway.
Maybe Frieza arc. Maybe. Even that was weird, but yeah, continue.
Anything after maybe... I don't know, who cares? Everything after Goku gets hit by Bulma's car is hit or miss.
Right. I guess that's true.
Because he really, if you're a kid hit by a car, you really should just die. But then we wouldn't have this series.
Yeah. It would be
anyway, series. And then when Vegeta realizes he can't throw Magetta out of the ring, he tries to destroy the ring and get him a ring out that way. And then at the end of the day, it kind of ends the same in the anime, where he insults, just out of frustration, he insults Magetta, and this causes Magetta to kind of freeze and then fall out very easily. And then later they explain, he's metal. The species metal men, they're very emotionally unstable, and if you insult them, they kind of lose the will to fight. And so that plot point is there in both versions, but it feels like it's emphasized a lot more in the manga, where it seems like he almost only falls out of the ring because he's insulted, whereas in the anime, it feels more like he's legitimately knocked out of bounds. But they have the kind of beam struggle with the lava versus Vegeta's. Is it the Gallic gun or
Final Flash? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not Final Flash. So yeah, Final Flash versus the magma. So it did feel like more of an actual power thing versus purely being because he got insulted at the right moment.
Yeah, it was almost like a mix of the two, but the manga made it seem like it was more the insult. Yeah, I like the anime version slightly more, to be honest, like I said.
Yeah, and more in the anime, it's more like the straw that breaks the camel's back more than the manga. But the insult in Japanese is also a bit different.
Yes.
So in the anime, Vegeta calls him a ponkotsu, which is like a hunk of junk. And then in the manga, he calls him a tetsukuzu yaro, which is like a scrap metal bastard.
Which I like more. Now, was this one of those things where Toriyama's original bullet point was Vegeta insults Magetta, and that was it?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know for sure again, but that would be my assumption, is that, he just specified, have him insult Magetta, and then each each party came up with their own particular way of insulting a robot.
Yeah.
A metal man.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
But Vegeta versus Kaba. Vegeta seems... Okay, this fight seems... I mean, I actually thought... It was weird, man. Like, in the anime, it's implied that Kaba's base is stronger. But in the manga, it's implied that his transform state was stronger. It was kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, so in the anime, Vegeta says that, like, they fight in their regular forms for a bit, and then Vegeta says, like, I guess we seem to be on par in our regular forms. Let's both become Super Saiyans. And then leads to the whole thing with Kabe not being able to transform. And then in the manga, I don't think he explicitly says anything like that. Like, he doesn't say, like, it seems we're equal.
Yeah, and he insulted, of course, Planet Sedal and that whole thing, you know. And then, you know, he transformed into blue. It wasn't too different. It really wasn't that different, yeah.
I feel like this fight is the one that's closest in both versions compared to any of the others.
I would just say the anime is a little bit better only because, again, this is kind of... It's not really fair, but Horikawa, I think, did a great job. And, you know, remember this pain. Was that line in the manga? I don't remember that line where he said, remember this pain.
Offhand, I'm not sure offhand.
Offhand, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember myself.
And, okay, so in the manga, they didn't have the Gallic gun, right?
No, they skipped. That was only in the anime because in the anime, it was a two-part episode or a two-part fight or two-episode fight. Yeah.
So that's like probably the biggest single difference overall.
Yeah. But with the Kaba fight, yeah, very similar. And then, of course, Vegeta versus Hit was, I mean, that whole thing was, it seems like Hit put more of a beating on him in the anime. If I remember correctly, the manga was significantly shorter.
Yeah, it's like he goes down a lot quicker in the manga.
Yeah,
Which again feels more like a time, not a space issue where he's only got a certain amount of pages per month, so he kind of since Vegeta has to lose, you might as well just have him lose as quickly as possible to move on.
Yeah, it seems like they wanted to, because of course, Toyotaro's aware that the anime is ahead of him. I mean, he has to be aware at this point, so let's wrap it up as quickly as possible. And so what do you think about Vegeta versus Hit? Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the quick strikes, or do you prefer like Hit kind of doing the Wing Chun style in the anime?
Yeah, I think I like the anime version more.
I agree. Now, Goku versus Hit. Oh, this is the big one right here.
We just got done talking about this. But...
Well, we did, but not in YouTube world. In YouTube world, we talked about it a few days ago. Okay, but I want to talk about something that we didn't cover on that, which was Goku fighting Hit in his base form. A lot of people were really irritated that Goku in his base, without transforming, was able to hang with Hit for a little while. How do you feel about this? Because I kind of see their argument, but I always go back to the fact that Vegeta just got done fighting 3 guys.
Yeah, I mean, in the manga version, they're very explicit about Vegeta being at like a very small fraction of his power just from having fought all those people in a row and having transformed and all that stuff. And then, but apart from that, it's like fighting Hit, like getting the hang of his time skip seems like more of a big part of it is strategy rather than raw power. And like in both versions, when Goku starts the fight, Hit asks him like, "Oh, aren't you going to transform?" And he says like, "Nah, that tires me out. Or wait until I figured out how to defeat you, and then I'll go transform." And then they fight, and then that's when Goku does the whole or predict where he's going to be, and he tries that, and like once he's tested that out, that's when he transforms, and then of course. That's when things start to really diverge between the two versions as to what transformations he does, but the basic starting concept is fairly similar.
Yes.
But
Go ahead.
I do think some of the panels in the manga were probably better at just like selling the idea of Goku predicting his movements versus the anime.
I love that stuff. Yeah.
Like there's the thing where he throws back his arm like seemingly for no reason, and then that's when Hit appears there and kind of just like he smashes into his arm. Like it's almost like doing it backwards. Like instead of Hit appearing and Goku punching him, he like punches where he's going to be. Yeah, like you can see him doing that. Like he punches where hit is going to be, and then hit appears there and gets hit.
Yeah, it was very similar to movie 5 when Cooler fought Goku and had his fist out. It was actually almost the same thing, and Goku's face went right into it. So it was very similar.
Yeah, so I felt like that. I feel like that sold the notion of Goku predicting better than the anime did, where it's kind of abstract in the anime.
Yeah, and I also thought that, and it could be the animation, I thought that the animation for that early part of the hit fight was kind of not that great, whereas the manga was a little bit more consistent. But, I mean, we already kind of covered the SS God changes. No need to cover it here again. I'll put a link to that video as well in the comment section down below. But I did want to ask you, overall, like, how do you feel about Hit being weaker? Because here's the thing, Herms. Let's look at it from a storytelling perspective. I feel like keeping Hit's full power a secret in the anime, which they kind of did in the manga too, but I thought they strengthened him a lot more in the anime, I think leads to a better build-up for the eventual Goku versus Hit rematch. Because now we know, and I'm talking about just the anime, that Goku, if you include Hit and the Omni King, is maybe these, and we're not even talking about Goku Black or any of that stuff yet, or the, Zamasu. No. He might be the 6th or 7th strongest character now. He's not even close to the top. So Hit, even though he believes that Monaka is like the goal, Hit seems to be the goal, like for real. I feel like them depowering Hit kind of somewhat took away from that, like the anticipation of seeing them go all out. Unless, of course, in the rematch, the Omni King states that you can kill, in which case, well, then it's going to get interesting.
Yeah, of course, when it comes to power, it's not even like necessarily that Hit's hiding power, it's more technique-based, like, as they describe it, like Goku says, like, oh, you can't use your assassin techniques in the tournament. And so, like, it's not exactly raw power Hit is hiding, rather than he's not using his best moves.
Yes, it seems that way, but will his best moves work on somebody stronger than him? Remember, it's implied that this time skip won't work if the guy's not stronger than him, so...
Yeah, and I mean, in the manga, that's another difference, is in the manga they do explicitly say, like, his time skip doesn't work on people more powerful.
Not to mention, in the anime, his time skip was able to improve as the fight went on. He kind of has that, like, trait like Majin Buu had, where he becomes better every time he fights. And that was totally not in the manga at all.
Yeah, they just left in the manga. They kind of replaced that with him. It turns out he is hiding, he's keeping raw power in reserve. Because usually he's, like, so used to getting by entirely on his time skip that he doesn't even need to use his full power. And then he finally brings it out, and he says, like, oh, I'm not used to using this anymore, so I can only keep it up for, like, a minute or so.
Beerus and Champa, in the anime, get into an argument about whether or not to allow the death moves. You and I talked about this as well. Yeah. And also, in the anime, when Goku throws himself out, it's implied that if they would have kept fighting, Goku may have probably lost the fight because his body was so burnt out. I don't remember that being in the manga at all.
Yeah, I don't think they really mentioned that.
Yeah, which to me, again, they're kind of somewhat depowering Hit and OPing Goku. How do you feel about that? Which one do you think it makes more sense? I mean, but again, he didn't use the Kaioken in the manga, so that does fit, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Hit definitely comes across as stronger in the anime version, but I don't know. I mean, I still haven't really fully digested the manga version of the fight, but I guess I don't mind it quite as much, but I do overall prefer how it went in the anime.
Now, Monaka's part was pretty much the same thing. I mean, right? The only difference is that there's a funny scene where Mr. Satan meets Monaka, and they have that whole exchange, which would lead to the filler stuff. Not in the manga, not really necessary, I don't think. The thing about Monaka being a fraud, I felt that was emphasized much more in the anime and the manga, even before the filler stuff.
Yeah, they had so for instance, like, there's a lot more hints that he's not always cracked up to be in the anime. And, like, there's that early scene where Goku, like, tries to test him out, and he punches him, and, his fist, like, comedically goes, like, about a foot into his face.
Which actually, let's keep it real. That kind of makes him tough because when he punched Kudadin, this guy flew back, So that's kind of not that bad. Like I looked at that and I was like, he kind of could be kind of tough,
Yeah, and so the anime has that scene. It's not in the manga. It wasn't in the original manga when it was in Jump, but then for the collected edition, Toyotaro included that image of Goku punching him in the face. That's a bonus image that they have between chapters.
Yes, and of course we also got that cool little bonus image that Toyotaro threw in there of for Frost in his second form, which I really enjoyed. That I thought that was kind of a cool thing.
So yeah, there's a few of those bonus images that he included just between chapters in the collected edition.
Yeah, I always love things like that. So the summoning of Super Shenlong, way better in the anime, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's like the manga is kind of just they devote most of the final chapter to the fight, and then all this aftermath stuff they kind of just skip over as quickly as possible. It's like mostly just the narrator saying, "Oh, and then this stuff happened."
Yeah, I thought it was just incredibly epic. I remember in one of the recent KANZENSHUU podcasts, Kaiser and Vegito EX and Kerbifer were talking about how the animation was kind of poor on that. I didn't notice that. I didn't see that. I thought it was very well animated and very epic, and I thought Sumitomo delivered with the music. Delivered it. I love the idea that the dragon is so big they have to go inside and talk to the nucleus. I thought that was really good stuff. Really, really good stuff.
It reminded me a bit of Chrono Trigger, just going inside someone's body and then having another version of them inside their own body.
Have you ever seen Star Trek: The Motion Picture?
No.
Okay, well, there was something very similar to that in that film, but go ahead. What were you going to say?
What I was saying, and it's also kind of like when they went inside Boo's body and he was able to form a smaller version of himself somehow.
Yes. Yeah. I thought it was pretty cool. And then they summoned the dragon, which was... Now, the Japanese written backwards, was the manga like that? I mean, we don't know exactly yet, but...
Yeah, because we don't have the Japanese original.
Was the Korean in backwards?
Darn, I don't think the Devil's Corpse didn't really mention anything about that.
I didn't see that either. Now, and then of course we had the Champa Beerus moment, which was kind of the same thing. Is there any preference you have there?
I mean, I guess the anime, just because it's more fleshed out in that version. But I mean, like you said, it's kind of the same in both versions, whereas the manga kind of just goes over it very quickly.
Now, the next chapter, chapter 14, we can pretty much assume Future Trunks arc?
Presumably. I mean, I really doubt that they're going to do the superhuman water thing.
It was pretty bad.
It just seemed like it's not exactly the right. I mean, it's kind of just filler. It seems like it, like just.
It's filler, but not the traditional sense.
Yeah,
of
it's
filler,
not the
right?
Yeah, not in the. It's more. Well, I mean, even TV shows that aren't adapted from anything, there have episodes that are kind of just in between type things.
Yeah.
And that gets called filler as well. So.
Yeah, exactly, but not adaptation filler, I guess would be the right term. So, how would you grade? We're going to use that scale here. How would you grade the Champa Arc anime and the Champa Arc manga? And well, before we even get to your grade, I wanted to ask you, which one did you enjoy more? Like, what are your overall thoughts on comparing the two?
I mean, I'll have to probably go back. Like, probably have to wait until the whole manga's collected in like a tankobon form, like, just a graphic novel edition. Because I have the first volume of Super, which goes up until about midway through Goku fighting Frost. And then it'll be interesting to see how I like it when I can just read through the whole thing in book form. But I don't know. I mean, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the manga, but it does kind of feel like it feels the opposite of what we had with the main series, where the manga feels kind of like an afterthought. Increasingly, when it started, they had the manga skip the Resurrection F arc and just get into new material. And so, like with those early chapters, that was our first introduction to Champa and Vados and the whole idea of a tournament. Like, we first found out these plot points with the manga.
Yes.
And then it wasn't until, it was like... it
was like March?
The manga, let's see.
March or February, I think, is when the anime caught up. I think it was March.
Yeah, sometime around, I believe it was midway through the Frost fight, wasn't it?
Something like that. Yeah, I think it was during the Frost fight because the Frost Piccolo thing was new. Because I remember saying on that review, this is all new. Now, the only good thing is that we're going into the anime every Saturday night or Sunday morning, depending on where you live, not knowing a damn thing. So there is pros to this. Whereas before we knew what we were gonna see and just see how it would differ from the manga. So now it's almost like an actual like TV show, you know what I mean, versus an adaptation.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's good for the anime. But I feel like it's kind of bad for the manga, where like
Yeah,
well, like
very
again,
bad.
we're only getting the conclusion to this tournament arc about 2 months after it wrapped up on TV, and there's a feeling that it's like, well, who cares about this stuff now? We've got Trunks to worry about.
Exactly. Now, for me, I thought that the manga Toyotaro did a lot of homages to the fans. Not to mention, we didn't even talk about how when Frost goes to his final form, he does the Frieza pose. Like, all those little homages to Dragon Ball longtime fans. And really, the hardcores are going to be the ones to read the manga, especially over in this country. There's not that much manga over here like it is in Japan. But I feel like the manga had a lot of really cool Easter eggs that the anime did not have. And there's times where I'm reading the manga and I'm like, damn it, I wish they would have done that in the anime. Especially the Goku versus Vegeta Room of Spirit and Time fight. But I would say the anime is probably slightly better. Even though the manga explained the yellow, like why they didn't transform into blue right away, better, I thought that the individual scene of Masako Nozawa doing the Kaioken and that whole thing I thought was just so much more epic in the anime. I'm conflicted, man. I think the anime might edge it out, but I feel like they need to combine the two to make like a perfect story. There's just so
Yeah.
much. Oh, why can't we get a perfect super? Damn it!
Yeah, it's very irritating where it's like neither version truly feels like the definitive version. But
Not
I don't
fair.
know. Oh well. I mean, okay. So the obvious good point of the manga is that Toyotaro's art is very consistent.
Absolutely.
So there's no bad animation days in the manga. He's like very consistently has all those Easter eggs, attention to detail. I mean, he's no Toriyama, but I think he's putting a lot of effort into this. So, I mean, sometimes I feel like Toyotaro is the only person involved in Super who really cares, at least to an extent.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's almost like a problem now because he's aware that the anime's caught up, so he's got to rush through things. And I wonder if he didn't have to rush through things, if his product would be better. I do wonder that.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how it would have gone if they had done a weekly serialization, just like 15 pages a week, and because that would get us more or less twice the number of pages per month. And like, if it did that, would it be able to keep up with the anime more and not fall behind? And how would he be able to flesh things out more? And I don't know, just be interesting to see how that would go.
Yeah, I do wonder that, but I wonder would he be willing to take it? Like, would Totaro say, "Sure, no problem"? Because that's a lot of work. I mean, we see other writers like Togashi and even Toriyama himself years doing a weekly serialized manga, and it takes its toll. I can't even imagine it. I really can't.
Yeah, it's easy for us to say like, it could be could be weekly, but obviously it's harder for the people actually doing it.
Yeah, how many pages do you think it would be if it was weekly? Like 15?
Well, I mean, that's how Dragon Ball was when it was in Jump, but it's a bit weird with Dragon Ball where, okay, so gag manga, like humorous manga in Jump, traditionally had 15 pages, whereas like more story manga, what they call, like the more serious manga they call story manga, those have generally 20 pages a chapter. And so that's why like One Piece, a series like those, they have 20 pages per chapter generally. And so whereas Dragon Ball it started out it was marketed as a gag manga when it started, and it just kept the 15 pages all the way through, even when it was getting into the Frieza, the science stuff and all that. And except then when they got to the Buu arc, it went even smaller, and so it was like usually 13 or 14 pages without even a title page.
Yeah, and that's why if you look at It's not that much smaller, but you're right. Like when you're looking at the volumes, like or the chapters, you can see that there are more chapters now. But the Boo arc is longer in general, either way. So
Yeah, it's like well, it's about 100 chapters more or less.
yeah. Now, your final thoughts and grade on manga versus anime Dragon Ball Super Champa Arc.
I don't know.
We like
It's
on
hard
your
to
on
say.
your scale on your 1 to 5 scale here.
It's hard to give it overall. Like I don't know, because like even yeah, just reviewing the main series, I don't really do like entire arc scores, but
That's true. You do individual episode
I
scores.
don't know, maybe 3 out of 5.
I would
Just
agree
like
with that.
it's like it's. I think yeah, I like it overall, but I don't think it's great. So
Yeah, I agree with you. I enjoyed it, but there's a lot of untapped potential. I thought,
yeah,
that's my big thing.
I guess just yeah, good, not great. I guess that's my final word. And then, I mean, I guess overall, I like the anime. I don't know. It's hard because there's so much bad animation in the anime that we don't get in the manga. But then, I think maybe it's just a wash overall. It's
Yeah,
gonna be my cop out answer is that they're both 3 out of 5.
I would agree with that actually because there's so much good stuff. Yeah, you know what? I agree with you on that. And plus, it's also hard because and when you rate the individual episodes, I got some flack for this because people were saying, well, you love the episodes, but when you reviewed the arc, you gave it a kind of a negative review. Well, yeah, because reviewing an arc is different than reviewing an individual episode. And I thought the arc really kind of, in my opinion, I thought the arc left a lot to be desired. I thought the fights were a little bit too rushed. And I remember we were thinking that the series was going to end soon. I remember that whole thing, that whole controversy, so to speak. Thankfully, it didn't. But I do think that even though we're only a couple of episodes into Future Trunks, I do think that that's going a lot better. And I hope that it stays at this pace for the remainder of the series.
Yeah.
All right, well, everybody check out Herms. Go ahead, what were you going to say?
No, I was just gonna say me too.
Okay, good. All right, everybody check out Herms, Herms98 on Twitter. I'll leave a link to his social media down below. And, of course, KANZENSHUU, you can see Herms messing around on the board, translating things here and there. And, of course, we'll always welcome you back to talk to me because it's always a pleasure.
Yep, it's been fun.
All right, well, thanks again. And, of course, everybody leave your comments down below like I always ask. And I do read the comments, unlike other people. Which one do you like more? The manga or the anime? What things did you like more about just the Universe 6 arc? If you want to leave your thoughts on the Battle of Gods arc, I mean, that's fine. But that's different to me because we also have a movie. And I feel like the movie kind of was the best out of those three. But still, leave your comments. Thank you. We'll talk to you later.